As a young woman, as a woman from Afghanistan, as an athlete, it's my priority to never give up. As I think the priority number one is girls' education, right? Schools needs to open for girls to continue their education because education is the most important fact for all human beings, especially for women. Secondly, we could push with international government support, especially US government, most powerful country in the world, to just give this opportunity back to the women in Afghanistan to open the soccer ground. They need to deal with the Taliban, with the current people that they're in power in Afghanistan. We need to kind of negotiate, argue with the current government to just let the girls at least go to school and continue their practices at least because they're just kind of separated to the different countries. And I'm about getting in a conversation level with the FIFA Women World Cup next week to just share this idea. At least we need to just target a country to just continue Afghanistan national soccer players practices every maybe if seasonable. Just for one season, for 2 months, everybody should attend their practices. Then they will be able to join the competitions, right? And international level. And this is my idea.
Hi, I'm Chris Waddell. Welcome to Living It, the podcast where we join experts in the experience of being human. Be bold. Say yes to adventure. Say yes to living it. Welcome to Chris Waddell Living It, where we talk with experts in the experience of being human. Sometimes that human part is rising above the situation that you've been in. Today we have Kawser, Amine, who was on the women's national team, the women's national soccer team in Afghanistan. She also is now the founder and CEO of Women's Solidarity for Peace and Leadership Global and is starting a soccer academy. That Women's Solidarity for Peace and Leadership Global started with a Save Afghan Women campaign and actually helped get some of the present women's national team to Australia, where they're continuing to compete, and then also is a program coordinator and spokesperson on women's issues at Roots of Peace. And we're going to learn a whole lot more about that. But can we take a step back? First, Kawser, we've got to welcome you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, Chris. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. Global greeting. So I'm Kawser Amine. As you mentioned, I just want to say like a little bit deeper about my background and myself. Just introduce myself very shortly. So I'm Kawser Amine, former national soccer player in Afghanistan national soccer team. And as you mentioned, I'm founder and CEO of my foundation, Women's Solidarity for Peace and Leadership, and also Amine Soccer Academy. And I'm very honored today. You invite me today in your very cool and amazing podcast. And I'm very honored to just share my experience. And it's really such a honor. You just helped me to just to bring up my voice through a social media platform.
No, this is absolutely awesome. Now, one of the questions is soccer is something that was transformative for you, but you knew when you were a little girl that you wanted to be a professional soccer player. What was the situation that made you imagine that the world could be different through sport?
Of course, Chris. And myself personally, my experience as an athlete, being professional soccer player just changed my whole life. And I was not expecting that much from myself before I was not athlete, right? And when I was like little one, about five and a half and six, me and my sister, both of us played in Afghanistan national soccer team. Actually, we both have like the same background. We were both playing soccer at home with the little mini tiny ball. And sometime if we never had a ball, me and my sister was trying to scroll something like making like a ball circle and just trying to play with each other. One day my mother realized that, hey, these two girls are like interested in playing soccer maybe. My mom's come to me and my sister, and because my sister is like 2 years older than me, and she was like a little bit mature than me, and my mom has come and asked both of us like, hey, do you guys love playing soccer? We call football in Afghanistan. And I asked my mother like, what is football? And my sister said, like, this is the football that we're playing right now, because I wasn't watching the matches. I was not familiar with the games and all that stuff, And my mother said, like, yeah, this is football that you're playing and you love. And I know you both love playing soccer or football. And I said, like, yes, we would love to. And we just continue playing with ourselves, with my brother at home, like with the friends and the relatives and cousins, like just kind of fun. But once we grow up, and I start joining first grade and second grade, my mother enrolled both of us to the school soccer team, and we both did very well. And one day our coach from school, she came, like head of sport department, actually, she came and asked both of us, like, hey, Kawser and Khatra, do you both want to just join the tournament in Kabul capital, and you want to select for Afghanistan national soccer team? I was in the second grade, and my sister was like in fourth grade. And I was saying, like, yeah, sure, why not? When is that tournament? And she said, like, it's about 1 week, so you need to be well prepared. You don't need to be very professional, but I see, like, you both are like playing very with passion, And I like your passion, and I see a lot of inspiring thing inside you both. And I just confirmed that the tournament with my sister, with our the teacher, head of department. When we just went to home, we just asked our mother, "My mom, could you just take us to the ground to the tournament, which is in this location?" And we just explained everything for her. My mother said, like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" But you both need to be prepared. You both need to have like professional soccer clothes, like shoes or whatever stuff, because your safety is like more important. We just went to the bazaar with my mom to the shopping. We just bought some local soccer dress. And I still remember that my dress, and I still have that dress with me. And we just went and purchased a soccer uniform, and we just attained a tournament. And luckily, the head of Olympic for Afghanistan, Mr. Jigdalek, was the head of Olympic for Afghanistan, and head of USOC, Afghanistan Soccer Federation, Mr. Kramuddin Karim, just select me and my sister with the rest of the girls for the Afghanistan national soccer team practices. And I was so happy on that moment, and I was so happy because it was like for two reasons. For one reason, I was not really understand what am I trying to do, and secondly, I was so surprised because I was not expecting to play a national team in a very early age, because in Afghanistan, with the cultural, people are like not allowing their young girls to go and play in the ground, because they say they're young enough, they need to get married, their body parts will be visible for the people, for the folks, for the audience, which is not allowed in Islam. So a lot of issues. And that's why Afghanistan national soccer team has been made of very young girls. To be honest, it's really funny experience for me. Whenever we were trying to went for some outside overseas games, maybe in Bangladesh or in Qatar, Pakistan, everybody was like watching at us, and everybody was saying, like, "Oh, your national team, you're looking so young." And we were trying to explain this scenario, this culture issue for everyone, but and somehow we felt like so good because we were the one to open the door for the rest to walk in. We fight through a lot of issues, challenge. I know for me, as a personal experience inside my home with my mother, it was really good environment that she was really supporting us, me and my sister. But with the people's reaction, society's reaction, it was very nervousing and very disappointing for me and for my sister. I mentioned in one of my interview that I still remember that I was trying to hide my soccer uniform and my bag because nobody else could see that I'm playing soccer. Because for me, as a woman from Afghanistan, it was not a really good impact and also not really good position to just announce or say like in a proud moment that I'm playing soccer, because people will get like will put you in a bad situation with bad comments.
How much has changed for you at that point? Because first of all, you had, because you're young. You said you were second grade and you were on the
Yes.
national team. So second grade on the national team. But then that had changed, that women were actually playing soccer or playing football, right? And that it was at least accepted enough that you had a team. How much had that changed, especially like since your mother's generation?
Yes. So with my mother generation, to be honest, when she's trying to say her own personal experience while she was so young, Afghanistan wasn't like this, right? And they had their freedom. My mother was like, when she's showing us their picture, I'm saying like, "Oh, mommy, you were in Afghanistan." She's like, "Yeah, wow, why not?" Before Afghanistan, before 30 years, was like totally different Afghanistan. But while this the Taliban regimes come, the war just happened in Afghanistan. Everything just messed up, and it was just a transfer of power and pure, less culture, pure transformation for Afghanistan. And at that time, I know it was like everything's among me, my mother, and my sister. Nobody else doesn't know that we're playing soccer because, as I mentioned before, we were not able to share this experience with everyone, even for our with our close family and relatives that we're playing soccer. Because everybody was saying like, "Oh, they're young enough, why they're not getting married? It's not so good. They play soccer because even they think if the girls play soccer, they're not virgin." And I was and this issue was like really sensitive issue in Afghanistan, and it's still it's a lot big issue with women's in Afghanistan. And we just kept to hide because when like CNN, BBC, a lot of famous news channels was like trying to visit Afghanistan national soccer team, women's soccer team, and Shajara Kabul to just have an interview with the player. Everybody was trying to hide, and nobody was ready to give the interview because everybody was like scared of their background, right, their safety. And a gentleman just one day came from Humil and they asked like, "Hey, we are just supporting Afghanistan national soccer team for providing like some equipment, dress, and other stuff. So, but we need 2 to 3 interviews from Afghanistan national soccer team players." And our coach just looked at everyone and he said like, "Who's ready to give the interview?" And nobody just raised up their hands because everybody was like really scared of their safety, and everybody was not really well ready to just talk in front of media and share their experience. And somehow I feel so disappointed that why women's are like on that stage in a country like they're not able to at least share their words, even they don't have like freedom of speech. We're not doing anything wrong, we're just playing soccer. Why communities are like not accepting us as a human, as a woman, right? And and when nobody just respond, the journalist just looked and he said like, "Oh, okay, instead of video interview we could do the audio." But with the audio, even a lot of us have had issue because of spreading our name to everywhere. And he just coded our name like, "Hey, a national soccer player and about 12 years old or 10 years old, she's having a statement about women's soccer like this, blah blah." And he never mentioned our names because it was very hard for everyone to just accept the risk.
But this is a huge responsibility for a 10 or 12-year-old, right? Just to have the ability to communicate what's going on in your situation, what's going on with your team, what your aspirations might be. I mean, there's so much going on that as a 10 or 12-year-old are really hard. But then with the potential repercussions
Mhm.
of saying something that might not go over well with the establishment, that's a lot of responsibility for a young kid, isn't it? I mean, how hard was that for you?
So if you want me to explain, I can explain in words because everything was like inside my heart, right? And it was a very heavy and huge amount of words always inside my heart that it was not able to come out, you know. And sometimes me and my sister was like thinking to each other like, why it's happening with women's. And I was always having conversation with my mother like, how could we change this society? And she was the only one to supporting us. And somehow sometime the men's in my family, like my father and my brother, was like trying to not really be supportive for me and my sister because they never had any other chance, right? Because whenever they were just going outside the home, the people were like having like bad comments. They're trying to somehow protect us, right, from the bad community and environment reaction. I know they were not able in that time to support us very much, but I'm very glad that my mother, dad, she really supported us like in our life. And that's why I'm here today in this stage as a founder and CEO and national. I could say I have honor to play in Afghanistan national soccer team. You could imagine, like, if my mother never allowed us to go and play in soccer ground, I never could expect change in my life. I never could be this Kawser Amine that I'm today, right? And I'm very glad that my mother, just as a woman, because she experienced and she really understand our pain as a woman, as a young girl, because she has already suffered those all experience, from those all experience. And I'm very glad she really support us. But with the community reaction with the little kids, like we weren't like young enough, we were like kind of teenagers, almost teenagers. But because the people's community expectation were like overload for us, like, and we were not able to kind of meet their expectation, and it was kind of not really safe for us to argue, to fight, because we were very young enough. So now, when I'm 29 years old, and I'm about celebrating my 30 years old birthday next year on February, I'm capable to fight for the women's right, because I understand, I have the enough knowledge how women feel in a community like in Afghanistan. And I'm very glad that I'm capable. I may not be able to change all women's life in Afghanistan, but at least I could bring their words in a social media, in a screen, right? In front of the media, to just talk behalf of them. I may able to change hundred thousands other Kawser Amini's life that they're living in Afghanistan in danger, but I don't want them to have the same experience as I did. I just want to share a very good, I could say good or bad experience, but based on my judgment, it was a very disappointing experience for me, because every twice a week we had our practicing in Afghanistan, Shashrak ground, which is US military ground at the behind of US embassy in Kabul, because that location was like really safe for girls to play soccer, because they had a very high walls of security, with the security cameras, with US Army was like almost around us, and it was helicopter ground, a military base. And I hurt my legs a lot. And whenever I just went home, my father were like asking, "What happened to you? Why you're not walking normally?" And I was saying, like, because I hit my leg. And my father said, like, because you're playing in a army helicopter ground, which is not safe, and it's not really flat ground. It have a lot of bumpy areas, and that's why you're hitting your legs always. And even those hard times and a lot of challenges and issue never to stop me, because I had this always in my mind that it's okay if I'm suffering a lot of issues and a lot of discrimination against me as a woman, but I want to fight for the rest that there is still behind me. And they're looking for the bright future, for the light, for the sun, like me, as I dreamed when I was little one. And yeah, this was like totally when I'm every week, actually, every Wednesday I'm going to Redwood City, a Bay Girls soccer team, and I'm joining their practices every week in Bay Area. And when I'm watching those girls, that they're playing with a lot of opportunity, a lot of equipment, a lot of facilities, and I feel like, oh, we never had this facility. Even we played in Afghanistan national soccer team, and somehow I feel so good for these girls player, youth soccer players. But then somehow I could compare myself as Afghan women with these girls, that how we went through, or how we suffered through these old challenges, and how fighter we were, right? To be honest, sometimes when I'm just sharing my life experience with some of my friend, I have a friend of mine, she live in France, and she's writer for Unlimited Journalists, 24 channel news of France. And when I'm just talking about my life, she's saying like, "Oh, Kausar, how fighter you are, how strong you are. Your bone is so strong, because you're just explaining your life chapter for me that I could imagine only, and I can just like think like how you went through." And hopefully, she's launching a book about my and my sister's life on January. It will be a life about women's from Afghanistan, and also transmission of power from last year, a little bit highlight. Because she just listened to me, and she just trying to bring this all the stories of me and my sister's life, and in a book, right? Everybody should know about women's reality, and women's real stories from Afghanistan. And it's very hard for me to just talk about like my past and background, but it somehow is really I feel so good because I feel empty when I'm talking about my background and my challenges and my life story. But in somehow I really feel good, like you and some of my friends, that they're really trying to support me to bring my out words out. And I have felt so good. And it's a really it's real advocacy work for women's. And if you're not listening to me, if not you're valuing to my whys, who should?
How does the change happen, right? Because you were playing soccer and you had the opportunity, while you didn't have the facilities, you had the opportunity to play. Now they don't have the opportunity in Afghanistan to play soccer anymore. The women don't, right? The younger team is based in Portugal. The senior women's team is based in Australia. How do you affect that kind of change, especially when the family can get punished for you trying to affect a change? And particularly, it sounds like the men in the family are charged with keeping the women in line, right? So your brother, your father could potentially get fired, or have fines, or a variety of different things like that. How do you affect, because it's a delicate balance, right? How do you affect the change? Does it have to happen on a governmental level in Afghanistan? Is it a matter of getting people out of Afghanistan? Is it getting the national teams these opportunities to play internationally? How do you affect that change and keep people safe and continuing to grow and continuing to give them opportunities?
It's a very good question. Like, I just faced this question many times. And as a young woman, as a woman from Afghanistan, as an athlete, it's my priority to never give up. And I know right now the situation in the ground in Afghanistan not really ready for the girls to go back to the ground, but it wasn't the same from 2005 to 2010 in Afghanistan. It was a lot progress, to be honest. In 2012, when we were playing soccer and I was young enough, the teenager, and I saw like there was a lot of changes around us. Like media could come, women could play openly. We had our friendly match with boys and just in an Olympic area, and underage boys like 12, 10 years old. So
That sounds like a big deal.
yeah, that sounds like a big deal.
Right.
But it was a lot changed happened since 2005 to 2010, and I can't compare those all changes. And women could join the tournaments and different leagues, national competition, local competition. They could just clap, they could yell, they could scream, they could just support. But there was a lot of changes. And when I was watching those changes on a TV screen, I felt so good with myself. And I was thinking like that, hey, you did it. We did it as a first national player. And based on current situation in Afghanistan, I don't much expect a lot for women's because as I think the priority number one is girls' education, right? Schools needs to open for girls to continue their education because education is the most important fact for all human beings, especially for women's. Secondly, we could push with international government support, especially US government, most powerful country in the world, to just give this opportunity back to the women's in Afghanistan to open the soccer ground, right? They need to deal with the Taliban, with the current people that they're in power in Afghanistan, through the arguments, through the conversation, right? They could just give this opportunity for the girls, at least if they could practice separately from the boys. Uh, Maybe in a different location with high volume of security, nobody could see the girls, or not really visible at the media the channel, news channel. But at least you need to start up from somewhere, like to just continue this fight, because if they're not able to save these all achievements since from 2005 to 2010, and now we are in 2022. Everything's will be destroyed. I think we need to kind of negotiate, argue with the current different government to just let the girls at least go to school and continue their practices, at least, because they're just kind of separated to the different countries. We could just target one country, maybe, and a middle Asia, or maybe in some European country, by support of international organizations like FIFA, like any AFC, like Asian Soccer Foundation. They need to just facilitate this opportunity for the girls from national level to just come together, at least to a safest country, to continue their education, sorry, to continue their soccer. Because if they not, they will, the world will be forget about Afghanistan national soccer players, right? Because we did a lot, we just had a lot of achievement and movement since 2005. And this is my personal idea I'm just thinking of, and I'm about getting in a conversation level with the FIFA Women World Cup next week to just share this idea. At least we need to just target a country to just continue Afghanistan national soccer players practices every, maybe if seasonable, just for one season, for 2 months, everybody should attend their practices. Then they will be able to join the competitions, right? And international level. And this is my idea. But with the current situation in Afghanistan, I don't much expect, but I don't want to be really negative about the situation in Afghanistan, but I want to be positive. But it have a reason, right? Because everyone's as a human being have a reason and they're alive for doing something, and I have the reason why I'm being very positive about the future, because I believe in Afghanistan and Afghan young generation and women's, because I see with the flow of evacuation last year, about 7,000 well-educated, talented Afghan women has been evacuated from Afghanistan. They just kind of disappeared from their family, but they're now in Washington, D.C., and I'm creating this circle of women's that they recently evacuated from Afghanistan to just share their words out what we really need to work on it. That's why I'll build up this women's solidarity for peace and leadership foundation to just gather this women's idea, their needs, right, to just change the world. And it is not possible just for it's not possible I could just bring the change just only by myself, but we could just make this happen if we all comes together from different nation, different country, different stories, and different inspiring personalities could change this word, and maybe we could make peace on that land in Afghanistan. And I'm very positive, I guess, with the conversation which is ongoing in Qatar and Uzbekistan among Taliban and US government, and some Afghan women's, the special representative from US government, Rita Amiri. She's speaking behalf of all Afghan women on that conversation. I'm very positive about this movement, but hopefully we could achieve and hand over a very good result at the end.
Yeah, so looking at that, because one of the issues right now in Afghanistan for women is that a lot of them have lost their jobs, right? That they've essentially been barred from going to their jobs, or they're getting much less pay, and so you've lost a lot of the talent, a lot of the experience in these women who have been in their positions for a long time. Is this part of where you're going? Like with sport, you can show some of the visible capability of the athletes, of the women as athletes, and then help that to demonstrate the need, the desire within. I mean, you've got to build a bridge effectively, right? In order to get this conversation going, because it sounds like the economy in Afghanistan is having a challenge as a result of losing a lot of the women, of losing a lot of the employment. You're also involved in roots for peace, right?
Roots of peace, yeah.
And farming is a part of that. So the mission of Roots of Peace is mines to vines, right? So this is going from the mines being the war part of it to vines being growing that you can export, whether it's fruit or vegetables or whatever it is. How much of an effect can something like that have on a society that is closed in terms of tradition,
Mhm.
in terms of
Religious.
it's religious, it's traditional, it's religious, and and it's a threat in a lot of ways, right? The women with more power have more of a threat. So how do we reconcile all of these things?
Yes. Yeah, based on current situation in Afghanistan, as you mentioned, the economy system is totally broke down because the NGOs has been closed out. People, just thousand people has been lost their job. Even they work with national sectors or international organizations. The list of them has been evacuated, but some of them are like still remaining without any job and status, because I'm actively in conversation with Afghan women back in Afghanistan that are in a ground. I having like called, to be honest, every night from a Pacific time around 12 to 3 p.m. Pacific time, San Francisco time in Afghanistan in a ground. I'm just listening to people's stories. And I have hearing a lot of experience from women back in Afghanistan that their women's were like the only source of income for their families. When the regime changed, the woman just lost their job, and now who could feed the family? With the children, mother, senior mother, father, but no man was there at that family to work. For God's sake, the economy situations like truly break out, and even peoples are like trying to burn their bodies because of poverty. You know, and I know I'm sure you all has been
Like a
here.
form of suicide? Is that what you're saying? Like,
Yes, and in a Kabul, in a capital, a man 3 months ago in an intersection in front of everyone, it called Debris intersection. He burned himself in front of his 7 years old girl,
mm,
and I can't imagine how hard is that situation for a father or for a daughter to see his father is burning himself.
yeah,
And I can say something like really tragedy than this.
yeah,
And I guess world needs to get back to Afghanistan situation. The people are like suffering from poverty. The women are like not able to feed their children. They're innocent people.
yeah. Uh,
To be honest, every night after this conversation, when I'm going to my bed, I'm not able to breathe,
yeah, sure, I'm
because
sure.
this is not I'm from Afghanistan. This is because I'm human.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. I
And I
mean,
can feel the same feeling for the rest of the human in this world. Please release the monies back to Afghanistan. Get people back to their jobs. Otherwise, these innocent people will kill or die from hunger. And I had a conversation last night with a mother. She worked with international organization with IOM. I'm not able to just provide her name, but she's really well expert woman. She's waiting for her visa to just leave the country, but I don't know what's happening with her visa status. She have a 3 kids. She just divorced it from his husband, and she's still suffering a lot from his husband family plus versus poverty. She doesn't have money to feed her children, and thousand other scenarios and stories like happening in Afghanistan. But we all need to come together to help the country, like because some of my friends like saying like, oh, Ukrainian people are like also suffering the same situation as women are like doing in current situation in Afghanistan. And I really want to hug my Ukrainian sister that they suffered a lot. They raped from militaries. They has been also suffering discrimination, a lot of issues. But Afghan women are like suffering this everything since 35 years. And they never get tired. They're still breathing. They still have a strong bone to fight.
how is your story different? How were you able to get out and be in a position where you might be able to affect a greater change?
Because as I mentioned before, I start up this idea of changing Afghan women's life since last year. Exactly.
But how were you able to get out of Afghanistan?
Yeah, it's a good question because my husband was working with US military and NATO for more than 6 years as a professional video editor because he's having his video production in San Francisco Bay Area. He's working as a freelance and doing some video other stuff for different companies. And in Afghanistan, he worked with UN United, UN Habitat, UN Women, Counterpart, World Vision, a lot of expert brands in Afghanistan, and he was making a video on the ground from different provinces. But in meantime, he was employed with the NATO ISAF, Resolute Support, and he worked for 7 years. So on 2017, we applied for a special immigrant visa, which is SIV. And we got qualified to apply for this program, and we got our visa after 2 years of processes, and we got our visa at early 2019. Me and my husband and my daughter has been evacuated, or just we just immigrant to the US, and we just start up our life from there. But before, even in Afghanistan, I was not only involved in kind of athlete or sport activity, being athlete. Because me and my sister were studying political science in American University of Afghanistan, and I founded Women Leadership Club and Women Soccer Club. Even you can imagine on that time that all the students reaction, especially men's, was like saying like, oh, this is Women Leadership Club, what they want to really do, they want to really change people's mentality, and it's not gonna happen. And a lot of positive and negative reaction from a student inside the campus. And even
As a result of starting this club, were you a target? I mean, were people threatened and you were targeted, or
no, no, it was not target, but I'm talking about the people's reaction, the students' reaction. The
their reaction? Were you, as a result of being the leader of this thing, of this
yes,
club, were you then, were they looking at you as a threat? And so
of
were
course.
you in jeopardy? And so were you a target in that respect, that they were looking at you saying, we've got to eliminate this voice,
Yeah.
which is a threatening voice?
Yes, of course, because and somehow they never believe in women powers, women's voices never respect. But me personally and my sister and our whole team, we just built up this women leadership club in American University of Afghanistan. We never gave up. We just continued this club, and we had a lot of powerful speeches from different women's leaders from different country. We just inviting every week. We were having each invitation and different topic. They were just speaking in different topics. And also we founded women's soccer club, and I still remember when we were playing soccer inside the gymnasium in American University of Afghanistan, a lot of our professors, US professors, was like trying to clap on us, trying to yell and trying to say, hey, good job, you're doing well, wow, and trying to support us by their positive reaction and positive words. But then somehow, when I was trying to compare this US, or sorry, like foreigner expectation plus versus our own community expectation and reaction, it was totally different. And this is always pulling off women's and their community when they're seeing like negative reaction from their own community. And it is very important. And also, as you mentioned, I just started from there, holding up the leadership as a young woman, and also trying to involve women in sports sectors and also in education leadership. And this is how I bring today with the general and a very big idea, women's solidarity for peace and leadership. And that's why I'm trying to just support this foundation and just trying to help my own foundation. And I'm very glad that I have very helpful, very kind US friends now in the United States of America, that I'm capable to just lead my foundation. They has been really supportive for me in past 4 years of my journey in US. They're really trying to push myself and trying to share or spread my inspiring journey as Afghan women, to support my foundation and to support the rest of women that they're in need and back in ground in Afghanistan. And this is very important.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really important, and it happens both locally and then globally, right? And so you're looking at it more on the global side, being here in the US right now, trying to impress people in the US to help and find the right way into to affecting that change and to helping the women. How much does Roots for Peace, how much is that organization? So you're a program director there, right? How much
Mhm.
is a program coordinator? How much are you able to do there? Because that's an organization that's been around for a long time. And how did you meet the woman who is the CEO of Roots?
It's a very, very, very good question, Chris, and very good memory for me. So an experience. As I was in 2005, we met with former State Secretary there, respectful Condoleezza Rice. She visited Afghanistan national soccer team and Afghanistan International Airport. And Heidi Kuhn, the founder and CEO of Roots of Peace, she took us to the airport to welcome State Secretary Condoleezza Rice with the ambassador, Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad. And on that time, I remember a very powerful and strong comments or words from State Secretary Condoleezza Rice. She said, "You are very young, all of you, and I wish for you all a very success life with a lot of achievement. And look at you all, you're very strong women, and you're able to change your country. But just remember one word: never give up." I always remember, and I'm kind of, save this words in my mind since 2005 when she was in Afghanistan International Airport. From that time, we start up, Heidi Kuhn started up supporting us as a national players. She tried to facilitate her NGO's soccer ground to Afghanistan national soccer players every once a week. We were visiting her headquarters NGO Roots of Peace in Kabul to just continue our soccer practices. And his husband, Gary Kuhn, was our coach because he's a soccer player and he's very passionate about soccer. And I remember he was facilitating her ground. He was preparing the food for us every week, once a week after our practices. We were having evening or like kind of lunch, later lunch on her NGO. And after that, he was trying to drop each of us on our doors. He had the transportation, food, ground, and all other stuff because she's a humanitarian and she had that the kindness, and she saw a passion inside every each of us, and she was really supportive for us. And I could call her my US mother. Even she have my US mother because whenever I'm hugging her, I'm having like different feeling for her because I grew with her. But the scenario how I reunited with her since 2000, maybe since 2010, with a lot of changes that happened in Afghanistan national soccer team. We just stopped the girls soccer playing soccer practices on her NGO, and because Olympic was trying to kind of support girls much better and trying to provide another extra hours of training for girls national players, and kind of we just transfer from Roots of Peace going to every week's practice on her ground, we just transfer to the Olympic ground. So, and since 2010 I was not able to meet her, and then somehow we kind of desperate because she was trying to stay a lot in US then Afghanistan because of the security reason or situation, but she was really a lot in and out of US to Afghanistan, but and somehow we were not able to meet a lot. But since 2010, I was like trying to kind of lost it, my connection either in some and for different reason with the Heidi Kuhn. But last year, my husband just came home one day and he was saying like, "Hey, I'm shooting a video for a Heidi Kuhn, founder and CEO of Roots of Peace, on her backyard tomorrow on 15th August 2021. Do you know Heidi King? Because she had a very deep root in Afghanistan and she know a lot of women in Afghanistan. You may know her." And I was saying like, hey, stop. We're talking about Heidi Kuhn, the founder CEO of Roots of Peace, and this is her logo of her NGO. And he said like, yes. I just requested my husband, just took me there. I want to meet Heidi. I know she did not invited me because she don't know that I'm your wife. And my husband would say like, oh, it might be a very big surprise for her. He just took me there in her backyard on August 50th. She was busy planting flowers with the rest of the kids on her backyard because she was hosting an event for peace. I just shaked her shoulder and I was saying like, "Hey, Heidi, do you remember me?" She just looked at me, and she have a very strong memory. She say like, "Oh, you're Kawser Amine, soccer player, little soccer player." And I say like, oh my gosh, Heidi, I was not expecting you could remember me because I changed it a lot. I was little one. It's just, face and skin and age transmission. And I was not expecting you could remember me. She said like, I can because you all are like my daughter. She only have one daughter, Kylie Kuhn, and she's in Guatemala operating her mother business. And she said, like, I don't have one daughter. I have one US daughter and 10 Afghan daughter. And you're one of them. How could I not remember you? And I was saying, like, oh my gosh. And we just started from there. And later that day, I got a call from Afghanistan that Kabul's falls. And I was in shock, and I was not able even to hold my hands, was like shaking, and I was not able to
Fell to the
control my,
Taliban.
yeah, fall to the Taliban, because provinces was like falling back to back, but I was not imagining or expecting that capital will be fall very soon after the 24 provinces. And Heidi just came and said, like, Kawsar, you need to be strong. Just you need to be strong for your family, that your children, your husband, your own family, and your rest of the family, and we figure out together. You're not alone. I'm behind you. And we just started from there. That's why I just built that Save the Girls, the Afghan girls. And the mission for this campaign was saved girls' education in Afghanistan, actually, because I immediately just had this idea in my mind: if the Taliban regime gets the power, control of the power in Afghanistan, they're stopping girls' education, and it just happened because I know they always has been. The story just tell me that they never been agree with the girls' education, girls' freedom, women's right, and all their stuff. And that's why I just started that campaign from Heidi Kuhn's home backyard. And this campaign got very viral, and I had a lot of interviews with local and international news channels. And I had like my voice out to the media as an athlete, professional athlete, and women rights activist in the safest country like United States of America. And on that moment, nothing was trying to risk me because I was safe in US, and I was trying to think for the rest of the women that they're right now in the ground in Afghanistan with a lot of issues. This campaign got very viral. After getting very viral, words get out, and I was always mentioning through the different source and news channels that we need to save athletes, women from Afghanistan. We need to save athlete women from Afghanistan because their life is in high risk, and that's why this words could change 45 national players from Afghanistan's life, and they just evacuated to Australia, and the rest that they're evacuated recently in some European country and Spain or Brazil. And the evacuation process is an ongoing with the athletes. And I'm not able to just mention her name, but it's a very, very talented and expert woman from Afghanistan that I know her. She's also in Bay Area. She's helping these women to evacuate to some European country, and she have 120 people's list she provided to the France government and also Germany government to evacuate it very soon. And I'm very happy with this all opportunity because we all could change something by saying our words out. And sharing your ideas always, bringing out your words up always, it's very important, but it really depends to the situation. I could compare myself 22 years before. I was not capable to talk in front of media 20 years before because I was not in a safe situation. But now I feel so grateful that I'm in US, I'm safe, I could fight for the rest of the women's life. and I will never give up. This fight is just continue. This is not actually fight. We're trying to bring a change. We're change maker. You change maker from a country like Afghanistan,
Mhm.
right? And we're trying to bring a change. We will do that definitely with each other's support. Drip, drip is ocean. And I always believe on this. If we all comes together, we will be capable to change something.
It's interesting because you were talking about your campaign and helping some of the athletes to come out to get out of Afghanistan to a place that was safe. And the women's national team is in Australia, and the younger national team is in Portugal right now. But the getting to the airport, which was closed, and then finally getting a flight out, and not necessarily knowing that they were going to get a flight out, and then finally getting a flight out, there was huge cheers
Mhm.
with all the athletes that it was like, okay, it's finally happened. We're out. We're going to be free. We're going to be free of the risk. But at the same time, it was that double-edged part, right? That they were getting out and they were going to be free. They weren't worried about being persecuted, but at the same time, they were leaving Afghanistan. That's part of the conflict, isn't it? In leaving your home, but then is there still a desire for you to return home, to return to a better Afghanistan?
Of course, definitely. And I was in a speak with one of my friend last week, and she was asking me, "Hey, Kawser, are you? Do you ever imagine you will be able to go back to Afghanistan one day?" And I just said, like, "Hey, look at me. She worked for U.S. military. I say, hey, we've been involved in Afghanistan evacuation process, and you have been involved in U.S. government in a special project to Afghanistan. You know much better than me. But I, as Afghan woman, I always dreamed to go back to my country. Even someone could secure my life. Today, I'm willing to go back to my country tomorrow to help the rest of the women. Even I can wait for a long. But somebody needs to secure my life because I'm not able to go right now to save the rest of the women's life. Because I want to I know immigration process and refugees are like having different stories. All immigrant and refugee have a reason for leaving their lands. And I am one of them because of this lack of security and a lot of risk for my husband's life and myself as an athlete, my husband as a translator, interpreter, or co-worker for the US government. It was a high volume of risk for our life. This was the number one reason I left my country. Otherwise, I was struggling with a lot of issues as I did before, and I was ready to accept that all challenges. But then somehow I was thinking with my husband that like I have 2 years old daughter,
Hmm.
and if I'm not able to save her life, what happened? I will be trashed, right? Because I have 2 years old daughter, and I see a lot of change and movement and inspiring thing inside her. And I want her to be the woman or a girl from Afghanistan to change the rest of the girl's life. And I can't leave her in a danger. And that's why we decide to leave the country. For sure, it's not really easy for me to leave my country and my family and my loved one, but still this fight could give me a lot of energy power to think for a bright future for Afghanistan. And I know those girls that they left the country, the national player to Australia, to Portugal, they're still looking to reunite it with their families because they still left their country, their families back in Afghanistan. They left their country, their everything. I still remember my soccer ground in Afghanistan when I was walking in, I was kicking the ball. And I deeply missed those all moments. I wish I could be capable to go back to my country and help my country's people and my country from my women from my country to just involved in back in some leadership programs, development programs. And I want the help and support from international organization and governments to just pay attention a little bit to the Afghanistan economy situation. Because if the economy situation rebuilt, rehealed, we will have everybody back to their country, right? I know. And also, peace is not possible without the economy. If the economy situation is like breakout, Nobody will be capable to bring peace on that lands, because I see a crime level is like high, crazy right now in Afghanistan. People are like selling their mother because of money. Can you imagine this, Chris?
No.
I just heard this news last week and I was shocking in my bed in the morning. Two Afghan men are like trying to sell their mother because of money, poverty. A senior mother. If you're not able to stop this poverty, not able to build this economy situation, we will be hearing a lot of danger scenarios than today's, right? Because people are like not able to fit their own self, because there's no job, there's no money, there's no development. And
Right.
of course there's a few international organizations are like still helping some Afghan families, and Roots of Peace is also one of them. They has been helped the Paktia earthquake disaster, like in 3 months ago they helped around 55 to 100 families with some immediate food assistance, blanket, some immediate the assistant like dress, blanket, a very local bed, and other stuff, and shelter for them to live. But there's the rest of them are like, because of security situation, they're not capable to get back to the ground in Afghanistan. Even they have hold of a lot of money, but because the US government are like not releasing money back to Afghanistan because of this some political issue, and also the organizations are like not able to send their funds back to the ground, and the people are like suffering from hunger, poverty, and a lot of things are like happening in Afghanistan. Not only women's are like pressed up with all these issues, everybody, men's, women's, kids, children's, everyone's. But we just need to first of all be really careful of building the economy situation back in Afghanistan, then peace, then we will negotiate about the girls and women's life, because poverty is the priority number one for me personally, because people are like dying from hunger.
You can't do anything when you're hungry. This is part of your mother's philosophy, right?
Yes,
What was her philosophy?
she was always mentioning that if you have the passion, right? She was trying to narrative this word of passion to the hunger, because she said like, if you have a passion of like playing soccer, but the situation is not ready yet for you as a woman to walk into the ground, what happened? And the poverty is the same scenario. If you're hungry, you don't have any food to eat. So what happened?
Right.
You have the oxygen in the air. You have a very beautiful country like in Afghanistan with the very organic fruits, very honest, kind people. But if you don't have a security, food, and freedom, what happened? It will kill you inside your body, right? And I deeply understand the people's feeling right now in Afghanistan. They have everything, God given everything, but they're not able to access on it. It's something that it's holding on their bodies, not able, capable to do anything. Like putting a bird in a fence or something, and they're not able to fly.
Right.
And that's why my brand, Women's Solidarity for Peace and Leadership logo, is made of two wings, because my mother always mentioned like, if someone cut off your wings, then you will be not able to fly. And that's why I have this wing in my logo. Nobody else could be able to cut my wings again to not let me to fly. And I'm that much powerful now. I'm not letting anyone to cut my wing as Afghan woman, and I will fly.
And she also said that you need to take care of yourself first, right? So that you can help
Yes.
other people, to ensure that you're safe so that you can help other people. And so this is the path that you're on right now, which obviously you've lived so much and you've seen so much, but to try to affect that change. And obviously your relationship with Heidi Kuhn is something that's really helpful too, to continue to grow and grow off of that. What's what's on the immediate horizon for you?
The immediate horizon, as I mentioned, is economy.
Hmm.
And it was not only, I just want to just mention and add some more word on this sentence. Heidi Kuhn is really support me in my background back in Afghanistan and also in US. But I want to really thank a very dearest friend of mine, my very new friend, Joanne Pisternak. She's philanthropist, and I really love her and respect her. She really listened to me as an athlete, and she promised me that, hey, I am able to change your life and I will support you with it. Whenever you need anything, just get back to me. And I'm very happy that she is helping me, supporting me a lot with building my foundation. And that she is the one that she support me, that how I built WSPL. And last year in April, I met her on Athlete Wise event. Before that, we were in an ongoing conversation. And when I met her in person, she said, like, you will be able to change something, Kawser, because I could read and imagine, and I could read these all everything's passions in your mind and your face, right? I could read that easily. And I'm very glad she really helped me. And some other friend of mine, I don't have the list right now, but there's a lot of friend of mine that they really support me right now. Currently, they're supporting me to move forward. But she was the only one. She gave me the reason to build this foundation, WSPL, because she saw that passion on me, and she's willing to help me and continue her help and support. I know if she's watching me right now, I want to just say thank you so much, Joanne, for doing a lot of things for me.
Yes, Joanne Pasternak, who's a mutual friend of ours, and Athletes Voices
Yes.
is something that they're trying to
This
amplify.
is she was the reason I met you,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And your story really inspired my daughter. And she's always looking at your picture with with my daughter, and she's saying like, oh my gosh, when we were able to meet Chris back. And I was saying like, oh my gosh, okay, we will one day.
Well, hopefully in November, we'll see. But
Hopefully.
thank you for all of the work that you're continuing to do. I know that it's a difficult situation, and that you have to approach it in a variety of different ways in order to be successful. And you're gaining such an amazing network that is going to be really helpful too. So thank you for living the change that you want to see.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris, for helping me to bring my words out in loud. And this really helped me because I'm not that Kawser Amine I was 20 years before. Now I can speak and I can fight for freedom of my speech and for the rest of the women. And thank you so much for supporting me and inviting me in your very amazing talk. And I really enjoyed this conversation. And hopefully I could meet you soon sometime. And have a wonderful day, Chris. And I want to just say a very last message for all of my audience or someone that they're watching this video or this show. Please support women's right. It doesn't matter where they are related, to which country, to which race, to which gender. Just women's solidarity could change everything. Drip drip is ocean. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kawser. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Hope that you've had a great time. The greatest gift you can give us is to tell your friends. Tell your friends to tune in. Please like us, please follow us, and we'll come back with another great show next week. Thank you all. See you soon. Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe to Chris Waddell Living It for more stories on the adaptive community, the Paralympics, artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, experts in the experience of being human. Also follow us on Spotify, Apple, Facebook, and Instagram. I look forward to seeing you next week.